That's called the Supreme Court right there. And what I see appears to be a female monarch with 8 subservient males. So when you study Gandhi and you learn about what Gandhi did, he spent the first 20 years of his career as a lawyer in South Africa fighting for the rights of what was then called colored people, long before Nelson Mandela was called off of Robben Island by the acting leader of South Africa, de Klerk, and pulled out of 25 years of prison to negotiate the turning over of power. But Gandhi fought for the rights of colored people and I'm doing the quote unquote signs if you're listening to this, not looking at it, when I say those words. Gandhi did a lot of things, and then when he left South Africa after 20 years of working as a lawyer there, he went back to India where he saw a mess. And what had happened was there was the division in India between peaceful men and aggressive men who will actually beat your ass. And what Gandhi called the Muslims were Musulmen. And so now today you have modern day India and Pakistan, but they're split, and they have an area called Kashmir where if you're a really angry man or woman, you can go fight in Kashmir and kill people if you want. That's just weird shit about World War stuff. But the thing that happens is like this. During the time of the occupation, before they left, Gandhi was pissed off because the British Crown said that they owned all the salt in their empire, including India, which had not split between Pakistan and India yet into 2 countries. I think it was called India as the whole area. And what happened is this. Gandhi was like, you can't own all of the salt in India. And the British Crown was like, we own all of the salt, and anyone who sells or has commerce with salt will be imprisoned. So Gandhi walked 250 miles from where he was when he learned what was going on to the ocean, telling everybody and proclaiming along the way that he was going to pick up salt at the beach, at the ocean, go to the nearest British Crown officer of the law and say this: I own this salt, arrest me. And they did immediately because you could not challenge the crown. Guess what? Gandhi was inflamed. It's kind of like the story in the Bible when they say, beware the yeast of the Pharisees, or when the people are told don't eat leavened bread, which means don't put yeast in it so it doesn't rise and get fluffy, it becomes flat like a cracker. Because if you look at modern psychiatry, which is much of it is reworked old pharmacopoeia or alchemy, everything can be turned into a white powder very easily. That's a so-called drug or substance or ingredient in food, like flour or sugar or salt. And so Gandhi protested the crown putting things in the salt across his beloved area that he came from, where the Buddha was from. And so when they affected about 300 different microcultures in what is now called India, add in a few 50 more or 100 more if you add in the Pakistan area, languages, subcultures, dialects, different belief systems, different foods. It's kind of like what happened in Africa, say with the country of Niger, when the Yoruba people were a very large population in that area or region of that landmass we call Africa. They put the line between Nigeria and Niger. And so in Niger, there were 3 main cultures. The Yoruba were the largest tribe, but they took the smallest amount of people and put them in charge. And then in Nigeria, the Yoruba were put in charge of the other major culture there. So that's a trick of the same empire. Anyways, they were basically putting different substances in the salts in India. And that's why it was such a controlled market. If you go to the USDA, the Food and Drug, like the USDA, Department of Agriculture, 14th Street, across from the Holocaust Museum, you'll see a shocking design relative to the just in-your-face blatancy of bad things. But so when you look at the Supreme Court, which is what I'm standing in front of, and it says all equal under the law, what is the law and who is it? Well, it's those people right at the top there in that little pyramid party. Other than that, we are under the law. And Gandhi protested being under the British law when he walked to the beach to pick up salt, sea salt, and say he owned it to offend the King and Queen of England, therefore being put in prison. That's something Gandhi did. Now we can look at modern day today and look at a lot of the aggressive killing is actually usually for agricultural areas. The aggressive killing and the bulk of spending in all major industrial countries that are global is military. Planes, boats, weapons, machinery. And guess what? It's all the same things you need for transportation and distribution and warehousing all over the world. So the same products can be manufactured and redistributed after it was called so-called warfare, and those things can be redistributed later to other places, which is what happened in Afghanistan. But back to Gandhi, back to substances. You know, there's not a lot new with that stuff. And you have to wonder how people don't remember these things or forget the worst things in their lives. And we block it out easily as people. We block all the worst things in our life easily out as people, and when substances are put into your things, you block it out more easily. The drug supply is so prevalent in DC and everywhere else in the United States of America that people just get prescriptions to give it to other people for a little bit of money. And they have so much of it, it's killing people at a high rate because people are insane, I guess, and they don't mind killing their friends. There's actually a market of substances available now to bring you back to life if you die from drugs. So your friends won't only kill you, and I'm calling them your friends, but they're not. They won't only kill you, they'll also give you the stuff to bring you back to life. I'm thankful to God that the 3 tent camps that I lived in have closed down. Allen Park, McPherson Square, and Triangle Park. And unfortunately, I almost died last year on December 30th. And had my face sewn back together, wired back together, teeth put back together or ripped out, and my skull fixed and my hand fixed. In fact, one tooth was hurt so bad with the dude just like bite down on it as hard as you can and I'll come back to see you in a minute. They wouldn't show me what I looked like, but my face was ripped the fuck open with pieces of teeth. And my jaw had to be... Anyways, substances, for instance, that they were giving out and selling from that park at night and doing deliveries on motorcycles and scooters. In plain view of the park police, which is why my near murder was not investigated. When I was hit in the face with a war club, wooden shillelagh, and back of the head with either a rusty pipe or a bat or something covered in mud by a guy so-called named James Jackson and so-called named Jacob Ward. They say Jacob's in the psych ward since the time of this thing and that James Jackson's running free. However, the guy I know they call James Jackson is Bob. He's bigger than me. And this guy they call Jacob Ward is about yay tall and acts like he's like James Dean all the time. He actually stole some of my art one day, thugging on me at that park. And I had lived there since May, December 30th. I gave the report a few days later to Officer Seafort at City Hall. I believe it was January 4th of the U.S. Park Police after making my shenanigans with fucking face stitched together and wires holding my teeth together. Going to the point that the lead officer took me to the basement of City Hall and was like, we're not going to have none of that crying stuff. What do you need? I said, I need to talk to an officer of the park police and tell him I was like almost murdered. They were like, they were like, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know, dude, I'm freezing. I need help. And he was like, here, go outside. And then about a half an hour, 45 minutes later, U.S. Park Police showed up. 2 of them, including Officer Seafort, spelled Seaforte.
I also filed a report with, I don't know, a lot of people. I was at a lot of hospitals too. First, George Washington University Hospital. Then MedStar Trauma Unit up on Irving Street. Then I went for follow-up at George Washington University. Johns Hopkins. What's the other? It's not just Johns Hopkins. It's called something else. Johns Hopkins. I also went to. I went to a Reston Hospital. I went to the hospital out in Largo at the end of the Silver Line, or whatever. Not the, no. What is that hospital out there called? It was the University of Maryland Hospital. I also went to. And then I went to Howard University Hospital.
And also So Others Might Eat for dental assessment, but I never got any services there. And that was December 30th of last year. And there's been 4 different prosecutors assigned to the case. Tesaryenko, I don't know, this shit's all written down. Where? Who knows? Anyways, so putting substances, there's so much of it out here. You can just go and watch the ERs in any city and watch how people just go in and out with wristbands on. Then they go somewhere and hand shit to people and get money. And there's so much out here, the people don't even need to buy it. They're just putting it in the water supply. Region to region, different attitudes for different seasons. Imagine on Halloween, you want people to be more scared. You put a little bit of the GHB kind of shit in there that makes you freak the fuck out, like that dude on Batman, or maybe a little bit of hallucinogens. Or let's say for Valentine's Day, you put more and more shit that's like ecstasy or MDMA in the water supply. There's so much of it out there. Because so many people don't care, they just think it's money. They don't care enough that it just kills people sometimes. So that was why Gandhi was pissed. And that's kind of one of the reasons I'm pissed too, because they tell people it's medication and give it to children, senior citizens who get their watches stolen and say, where's my watch? At the old folks' home. When the family complains, without their consent, it's put in their food till they get addicted to it and don't give a fuck. Or how about veterans? Or how about imported refugee workers who don't want to work in the factory, the hotel, the food truck, or the restaurant anymore, or the massage parlor? How about in what they eat? Or how about the homeless like me? Anyways, gotta go. That's the Supreme Court. Oh yeah, and by the way, I'm not going to get into a rapist that was just elected, a convicted rapist, and these folks who changed the law so he could have a bunch of felonies and become president and break the law of the founders of this nation, the United States of America. Yeah, so also when you invent a bunch of new shit and say lies about everything, and the plan is a worldwide education system based on master's degrees, which is Freemason ancient society talk for the men folk and for everybody who knows. You have the leftovers from when you build Washington DC and a few places like this around the world, then you go throw them in a pile somewhere like Greece and say that shit's like 10,000 years old and that's the oldest society in America. And I'm gonna leave it at that. Peace. Giving up to God always. That's all we got. Prayers up and out, always.